Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your identity?
My real identity or my fictional identity?
You could do both. It could be a double whammy.
All right, let's start with hello there, it's me, Professor Oak. I've just come back from Pallet Town. Or you might know me as Stuart Zagnit, and I was the original voice on Pokemon for its first 9 seasons. So hi to everybody out there,
Well, I
and
have
thanks
to
for listening.
say, as soon as I heard that voice, I couldn't help but smile. I mean, I haven't watched the show in forever. I think the last time I watched the show was on VHS, but the nostalgia kicked in, and it was suddenly like, oh yay!
Thank you. That happens a lot. Besides doing voiceover work, I do a lot of theater work, some TV stuff. And what happens is I run into young performers who were probably, 10 to 12 years old when Pokemon was in its heyday. And in conversation, we'll talk about things, and if Pokemon comes up and I tell them that I was Professor Oak, you see these people in their early and mid 20s, or if sometimes older, and they just turn into little kids again. It's kind of magical, the effect that has. And personally, it's a great pleasure to know that the voice and the show, had that kind of impact on them.
Definitely. But I have to wonder, going back in a time machine at 88 miles per hour, if we could get a little glimpse at what got you into acting.
Um, it's very interesting. I grew up in New Jersey in a little suburban town. There was really no reason for me to be interested in it, but I was from an extremely early age. Uh, I have to say, I remember trying to do impressions of Jerry Lewis and and would set up obstacles in my living room, like chairs and couches and things, and I would try to do as many pratfalls and trip over as many pieces of furniture as possible. And it was fun. It was fun for me, and it just seemed like I always veered towards acting and performing and making people laugh, and so naturally I got into it in school, which continued into high school. I majored in speech and theater at college, and it just seemed inevitable that this was the direction I was going to go. And here I am many years later, and I'm still doing this for a living. And no one's more surprised than I am, but it just always seemed to be the destiny that I was meant to do.
So what was next after theater? Was it commercial? Was it animation? How did that happen?
Uh, Animation came a bit later. I moved to New York. I started doing children's theater, and then I did some out of town touring. Uh, Worked my way up, got my union cards. Um, Commercials. I started pretty early on. I actually had put together a voice tape. Of course, in those days it was actually a cassette tape, and I put it together with some sample things, some of which me and a friend of mine just invented because I didn't have a lot of things at that time, and I circulated the tape around to various agencies. And what was interesting is that I get a phone call from an agency, and this young agent who just moved into the agency took over the voiceover department, and he noticed there was a stack of tapes sitting there, and he actually started going through them, trying to check out the talent that was there, and he came across my tape, and he liked what he heard. He called me up, and I started my voiceover career, just with that chance thing that he happened to have. He could have just thrown them all away and started fresh, but he gave it a shot and liked it, and I'm very grateful. And oddly enough, I still work with him. He's still one of my voiceover agents. So that started first in regular commercial voiceovers. The animation started really through a friend of mine who is a former actor. Now he's an attorney, and he sometimes moonlighted doing some voice work. And he said, they're doing a bunch of new, these animated series, and maybe you ought to go in. So I called them up and made an appointment, and I auditioned for several things. One of them happened to be Pokemon, and I didn't think anything of it because we didn't know what Pokemon was at the time. And so I got cast. I started doing them. And I guess it was about a year into it that like a light bulb finally went off, and I realized that this thing really was had really taken off. And I believe it was when Ash and Pikachu were on the cover of Newsweek that it finally sunk in that this was really a special project to be involved in. And it pretty much remained that for the whole time we were doing it. I have nothing but fond memories of working on the show. And it's really nice to get so comfortable with a character that, when they call you to come in, you know exactly what you have to do, and it's just like an old friend. So it took me a while to sort of get into, I didn't originally even know what I was doing with the voice. A little aside is that they also used Oak's voice on some video games. So the first time that I was called in, I probably hadn't even done a year's worth of Oak yet. It was probably only a couple of weeks in, and so I'm in the studio, and there's an executive from Japan, from Nintendo, who's in the booth with the technicians, and they're listening to me do my various takes, and I notice he's not really happy with what I'm doing, but he doesn't speak very much English. So after a few minutes of me trying various takes, he got on the microphone and in his halting English said, no, more oki. And so I for some reason, I sort of got what he meant, which was this, Oak sort of has perpetual, almost like a crack in his voice, and he gets very excited and it gets high like that, and that's what he thought was Oki. So I started to make it more Oki, and that sort of locked the voice in for me. So I got some unexpected help from the Nintendo man.
Well, that's actually really interesting, but I'm sort of curious, did you have any trouble matching lip flaps or anything like that?
Well, it was more challenging at the beginning because it was new to us. It's always it's a whole different art form when the video is already fixed and then you have to fit it in. But I have to say, to the credit of the directors and the producers, we used our imaginations, and we would all jump in with ways to say the same thing. And sometimes, you find a word that's one syllable instead of two or three, and it has the same intent. And the goal was, to make them fit. And occasionally when technology caught up and then they could compress your voice a little bit, that helped also. So we got better at it as we went along. And like anything else, the more you do something, you all become problem solvers. And it became, I came up with suggestions. The director would often come up with suggestions. And between all of us collectively, we worked it out. So it never became a challenge that, we all rose to the occasion, basically. And, we knew the goal was to make it as entertaining, in the English version as apparently it was in its original Japanese versions. So I think it became a challenge that was kind of fun. It was like, it's like puzzle pieces, trying to fit it in, and we knew where it had to fit. So we got good at the fitting process, in that, and also I have to say, with the writing of the scripts, when they translated them, there was always it was always important that they maintained a sense of humor in the relationships between the characters, and I think there was a real consistency and a high quality in the script, so which made our job that much easier.
And I'm sure the team dynamic was really nice because you worked on that for 9 seasons. And I know the voice actors really don't get to interact a lot, but the engineer and the directors, I assume, were mostly the same.
Pretty much, yeah. So you're right. It did, and it was like they would call you up when they needed you, and it was really nice because it was a comfortable atmosphere there, and of course when you've been doing something as long as we were, it actually becomes more productive because you're more efficient at it, and so each session, we could do it in record time all the time, which was good for them. They appreciated it because they could crank out the episodes more quickly, and we just knew what our job was, and I'd say it was a pretty efficient machine that they created there. So. I think everyone should be commended for that. And it's nice to be a part of a team like that. So.
And there's one thing I do want to ask, and if you're uncomfortable with it, just let me know. But could you explain a little bit about what happened when, it was near the end of your guys' run on the show?
Well, well, in a nutshell, I guess Nintendo that owns it, as I've come to know it, is they simply, the show had been running for 9 years. They were going into their 10th season. I think we were no longer quite as huge as we had been, say, in the second or third or fourth season, and it was a cost-cutting move that they decided that they wanted to look and see who could produce the shows more cheaply. So unfortunately, 4Kids, who had been doing it most of all those years with all of us, and who we were under contract with, lost to another producer, and who basically underbid them, and they went with them instead of us. So initially, since we were all under contract with 4Kids, we all couldn't just move over to the new producer. So it was one of those unfortunate economic situations that had an impact on all of us. And I have to say, it was emotionally a very sad day, and it took me a while to reconcile the fact that I wouldn't be doing the show anymore, because it really had become, like I said, an old friend. It was really like a part of me. So it was a little tough transition.
Well, it's kind of funny because a lot of the staff, for instance, as soon as the new games come out, they jump on them. But I don't know many people who actually watch the series with the new voice actors, and I'm sure they do a great job. I'm not trying to, say anything bad about them. Right. It's just, I think, we grew up with those voices for so long, and that was the part of our childhood that we remember that brought the character to life. And so for it to be something different, it just doesn't sit right with a lot of the older audience as well.
Right. Well, I thank you, and I agree with you about that. And I will say that I still have done the lion's share of the voice, in the history of Pokemon, and plus the in 3 of the movies. So I can't be unhappy about that. And like you said, people remember the voice, and if it triggered something when you heard me do Oak, then I feel good about that. Then I've accomplished something. So there's a certain what's the word, longevity? No, it's a feeling of satisfaction to have it made that impression on people. So no complaints.
And now you got to see the sort of boom of Pokemon. Did you ever get to meet any fans up close and personal? Did you ever get any chances like that?
We were invited to go when the movies were when they were still released in movie theaters. We would go to the openings, and they were kind of fun things. And it was always great to watch the audiences. My son was very young when we first started doing the series, so sometimes I would take him to the screenings, and it was always great to watch his face. And then when Oak would come on and start speaking, and he'd look, and then he'd turn and look at me, and that was a great moment, I have to say, And my son, who has been historically a very low key kind of guy, was suddenly caught a little off guard, and it was great to see him react that way. So I think he was
cute.
I think he was proud that his dad was Professor Oak, And then of course he, like a lot of kids, he grew up and then grew past it into other things, and then Harry Potter took over, and it was a different world. So. So that's does that
Yes, that answers the question. Do you have any events coming up where fans can meet you, whether it's for anime or theater or anything like that you want to promote?
The one upcoming event is KotoriCon. I think it's in New Jersey. They can probably check that out. It's KOTORI Con. And they've asked me to make an appearance, so that's in January. That's like the first week in January. So, they might come down and check it out, and I think I might be signing autographs and that kind of stuff. So, that's the most immediate one. But it's, there's been an interesting resurgence. I don't know if you know about the thing I did on Underbelly.
Yes.
So that's got a lot of hits online, and sort of a new wave of fans have sort of come out of the woodwork, and it's it's kind of nice to be remembered and appreciated. So I may try to make time to do more of that. Since the audience is still around and appreciates it, so
we're still around. We're still attending conventions at a crazy pace.
Thank you. Well, I for one, appreciate my fan base.
Now, in terms of theater or animation or anything like that, are there any projects that recently came out that you want the listeners to know about, or anything that you're working on that you can talk about?
There's nothing immediately that I can plug per se, but it's the business is very strange because it can be there can be nothing there, and then next week there can be something. So for right now, I'm sort of at large, looking for the next Pokemon to come along. I have confidence that something will be there, and I'll have a chance to work out again. I'm doing a lot of theater. I was involved in a Broadway show called The People in the Picture, which ended its run in the middle of June. I'm doing some theater in the city at the end of October, down at South Street Seaport, and then I'm doing a production of Cabaret in Connecticut. So I'm sort of all over the place.
That's not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all. And I like to keep busy. That's the most important thing. So.
And now, for the fans who want to keep updated after this interview, do you have any Webzones on the internet?
Not a Webzone. I mean, they can always Facebook me. I try to, respond to everybody as they come in. So that's probably the best place through Facebook. It's the only one that I could think of right now.
Understandable. And since we're nearing the end of this interview, I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
Well, and what is that?
We basically ask if you'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
Oh, sure.
Awesome. We just ask if you'd be willing to say, hello, my name is, you insert your name, I do this, you can insert characters, that you're an actor, whatever you want to put there, and
Right.
You're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
0.8 The Fan. Okay.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, this is Stuart Zagnit. Some of you out there might know me as the original voice of Professor Oak on Pokemon. And you are tuned to 91.8 The Fan.
See, that was easy.
Did I do okay? Was that
Yes, that was amazing. You're a
Okay.
professional. You passed your professional test.
Well, one take Zagnit. That's what they call me.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Just that thanks for let me try this again. Thanks for listening, and thanks for all the great comments that I've received over the years, and it's very much appreciated, and hope to entertain you more in the future.
And for anybody out there who missed any of this interview, shame on you, but don't fret, it'll be up on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes peeled to 91.8 The Fan, everything you want and nothing you don't.